Hey, welcome back to my channel. My name is Lou, and if you didn't know that, now you do. So, as you can tell from the title of this video, I think, somewhere, this video is about using ChatGPT for game design, right? So, using ChatGPT. So, this video is about using ChatGPT to write C# script for Unity, right? To use it in your game development. Now, one thing I want to mention is that ChatGPT is not going to replace programmers, or at least anytime soon. It's a very powerful tool, yes. Now, I do want to mention that for me, my personal experience with ChatGPT, I had to have some programming knowledge, right? I'm not going to say I'm a programmer because, well, I can program, but I'm not like, I'm going to sit down and write code for 6 hours and know exactly what I'm doing, right? There are some very basic concepts that I have an understanding of. So that has helped me to use ChatGPT to do this video, right? So the idea for this video was to use ChatGPT to create a C# script to generate a building using prefabs that are pre-made, right? That I went in, I made myself, and then ChatGPT took care of 90% of the programming. I say 90% because I did have to go in and like fix a few things, right? So at the time of recording this, not the content itself, not the screen recording, there's been a lot of changes to ChatGPT. So ChatGPT now has a paid version, right? So one thing that I was doing when making this video was that ChatGPT allowed me to ask many questions over and over and over again, or reiterate some questions, but never gave me a limit. The other day I tried using ChatGPT and it told me, you've reached your limit for today. I was like, huh? So that's probably one of those like updated versions that you got to pay for, so you don't have yeah. Anyways, but overall, this was a process I did not paying for ChatGPT. It took me a long time to do it because I spent like 2-3 weekends and just the entire weekend just going over and over and over again. So the first thing I learned was with ChatGPT, you want to be a little bit more specific, right? So you want to say, I want you to do this. And then afterwards, if you test it, it works, I want you to do this, and keep going, right? You don't want to say, ChatGPT, write me a script for a building, 2D building generator that creates random floors, and within those floors, it creates random windows that is within the dimensions of the floors, and add a collider to this. Because it won't work. 98% sure it won't. And the reason I say 98% because I tried it, not just once. And it didn't work. It was a broken script. So what I did was I went into ChatGPT. I decided to do it step by step, right? So first step was ChatGPT, write a C# script for Unity that creates an empty game object within the, as a child object of the object that this is attached to, okay? Tested it out, it worked perfectly. The second portion was, okay, so rename this building, right? Okay, so it did that. Now, within that building game object, create a floor using a prefab, a random prefab from an array called floors. And one thing I realized that really helped was making global variables on my own. Like writing the global variables and then saying, okay, ChatGPT, use this global variable to do this. And ChatGPT will tell you, like after it finishes writing the script, it'll tell you, or writing the code, it'll tell you, this is taken into consideration that your script has a global variable named da-da-da-da-da, right? So after I did that, it worked. It created the child object, but I wanted it to name it floor. For example, floor 1, floor 2, floor 3. So depending on the number of floors, and also using the global variable number of floors of like using that to say, okay, to go through like a loop, right? To go through a loop and make the number of floors. So that was pretty well. It worked out. And then afterwards, I was like, okay, so now that you have the floors, the like using the dimensions of the floors, and I did add like width and height so that it like taken into consideration. I want this to be scalable. I want to make it bigger or smaller, adjusting very little and playing around with it, right? So after that, I wanted to add a collider, which was very simple, very straightforward. It all worked. So at this point, the script itself was usable, right? I could make, let's say, 50 different prefabs that already have the windows and everything and just use that. However, I wanted to make it more dynamic. I wanted it to be very reusable, and not just with the game I'm working on, but also with other games. So what I did was I went in and said, all right, so now, and here's a very important note that I want to let you guys know of. Whenever you ask ChatGPT to rewrite something, it may end up rewriting the entire script, making it breakable, breaking your code, right? So if you ask ChatGPT to rewrite your code, it will most likely break it, right? So what was working before may not be working now. So it was a process. It was a process, and what I learned was use global variables, and then say, okay, write me a method that takes this into consideration and then does this, this, and this. So again, take it step by step, test it out over and over and over again. That's why it was nice, because before ChatGPT was updated, it would I'd have to refresh ChatGPT at times, but it would continue to work. Now there is a limit, right? You can still do this in a free version. However, you may take a little bit more time. So you really want to think about what you want to do. So anyways, what I did was I asked ChatGPT to make a method, right? To make a method on adding windows to each floor and referencing the previous floor, or referencing the floors that were already created. So this is where it adds a method to the add floor method, right? And then that add floor method has, at the end of it, it calls, like at the end of the loop, after it's made one floor, it calls the add windows method. And then in that windows method, it uses the dimensions for the floor to add the number of windows I wanted it. Now, one thing I did was I asked ChatGPT to add a margin, and using the global variables, float variables margin, I'm able to add a little space around the floor, or like within the floor itself, between the floor and the outside windows of the rows and columns that I was going to create, but also a margin around the window objects themselves. So pretty much the script, what it does is that it takes a empty game object, or it takes the game object that the script is attached to, creates a empty game object called building. Within that within that game object, it then creates another child object, right? And names it floor 1, and then within that floor 1, it makes the windows, right? And each window is an empty game object. So this way, it's scalable, and I can change the size of the building and everything. It took a long time to actually make this script using ChatGPT, but because I didn't organize myself at first, and a very, very important learning So something I learned was you want to organize things step by step, pretty much the same as programming. Um, you want to organize how everything's going to work, and then you want to have ChatGPT write it, test it out, and then move on to the next one, but taking the previous information, not telling ChatGPT, okay, so now add to the script this, and this, because most likely it's going to rewrite the entire thing. So you want to do it, okay, so taking into consideration there's a method that does this, or a global variable that does this. It takes some practice. I can say it takes some practice, but afterwards, it worked out really well. Now, I do want to mention that I had to recently. I tested the script. It worked out. However, whenever I moved the game object, it would actually move the floors with it. So if the floor is in the world origin, it will be perfectly fine. However, if I move it more to the left or the right, what's going to happen is that it's going to move each floor after that more in that direction. So it was fun. So what I did was I just went back and fixed a few things, and so now the script works perfectly, right? Obviously, you want to mess around with it, see what works, see what doesn't. But it was a very useful process, or technique, whatever you want to call it. But ChatGPT is a very powerful tool. Do I recommend it? Yes. Do I recommend knowing how to program? Very much so. Do I recommend eating tacos on Taco Tuesday? For sure. I don't know. The thing is, overall, ChatGPT, again, is a very powerful tool. It's very useful, but you still want to have some knowledge of what you want to do. Now, can ChatGPT be used just for programming? No, you can use ChatGPT for a million things, as we've already seen in like all over the internet, right? But overall, that was my experience with ChatGPT. It was difficult, long, but very, very much so needed, and very, very much, it was a very good learning process, right? So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I'm sorry that it was just a time lapse because it was hours and hours of content, and I didn't feel like just cutting to this and then just showing you that, right? So you guys can slow down, or if you do want to see the entire, like, the entire video, or the entire content, let me know in the comments below, and I'll put it all together and upload it for you guys. So catch you next time. Please hit that like button, subscribe for more content. I'll try to do my best to upload more content, and let me know what you guys want to see next, right? So that way we can continue moving this along, right? So anyways, I hope you enjoy whichever day you watch this in. Stay blessed, and I'll see you guys next time.